call that a win for me.
So far.
So far.
Just so far. This is what I do for a living. I'll find them. Alright. You are alive. Have fun.
Alright. Good evening, everyone out in interwebs land, and Nestor, who is probably inevitably on tonight.
Yep.
She says hi. Hi, Nestor. Tonight, in the Joseph Campbell study group, we will be talking about the belly of the whale, which is the next part in the hero's journey. And this is in Chapter 1, Section 5 of Hero with 1,000 Faces. And in my book, it is page 74. So don't know if that's what it is for you, but please feel free to follow along at home. And with us tonight, we have two actors who will probably be making silly voices throughout the evening. So do not be alarmed.
The appearance of actors on a television program can sometimes be alarming, but...
Well, on this one...
So we warn younger audiences.
Yes. Alright. So, the idea that the passage of the magical threshold is a transit into a sphere of rebirth is symbolized in the worldwide wound image of the belly of the whale. The hero, instead of conquering or consolidating the power of the threshold, is swallowed into the unknown and would appear to have died. And Campbell puts in this example from this poem, the great epic poem Hiawatha. Mishinama, king of fishes, in his wrath he darted upward. Flashing leaped into the sunshine, opened his great jaws and swallowed both canoe and Hiawatha. And then Campbell goes on to tell another story about the Eskimos of the Bering Strait. The Eskimos of the Bering Strait tell about the trickster hero Raven. How one day, as he sat drying his clothes on a beach, he observed a whale cow swimming gravely closer to shore. He called, "Next time you come up for air, dear, open your mouth and shut your eyes." And if my father was telling this story, he'd have a spoon in his hand and say, "And you will get a great surprise."
It would have vegetables or something on it.
It would have vegetables or something else. This one had a raven on it. Then he slipped quickly into his raven clothes, pulled on his raven mask, gathered his fire sticks under his arm, and flew out over the water. The whale came up. She did as she had been told. Raven darted through the open jaws and straight into her gullet. The shocked whale cow snapped and sounded. Raven stood inside and looked around. I'm going to make other people read tonight. That paragraph.
The Zulus have a story of two children and their mother swallowed by an elephant. When the woman reached the animal's stomach, she saw large forests and great rivers, and many high lands. On one side there were many rocks, and there were many people who had built their village there, and many dogs, and many cattle, all there inside the elephant. The Irish hero Finn McCool was swallowed by a monster of indefinite form, of the type known to the Gaelic world as a peist. The little German girl, Red Riding Hood, was swallowed by a wolf. The Polynesian favorite Maui was swallowed by his great-grandmother, Hine Nue Tepo, and the whole Greek pantheon, with the sole exception of Zeus, was swallowed by its father, Kronos.
Alright. So, that is a collection of historical examples, or mythological examples, of the belly of the whale. And as always, I'm going to ask you and everyone else in the group, and you at home, for some modern examples of people or other examples that were not discussed here. Internet? Nestor?
What was the question?
Some other examples of belly of the whale stories.
What would you say the one from Once Upon a Time would be? Seeing as we love Once Upon a Time here.
Oh, good lord. I would go with the mine that they all fell in a couple of episodes ago in the Jiminy Cricket episode.
That's true. What's that stuff at the bottom?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
Me too.
Because it looked like Snow White's little coffin, her glass coffin.
Oh, I didn't think of it as glass coffin.
Yeah.
The glass coffin, actually, the belly of the whale, which represents death, Snow White's glass coffin might also be, in itself, in the original Snow White myth, the belly of the whale.
Okay. Nestor says the old lady who swallowed a fly.
Huh.
I don't know why she swallowed a fly.
Perhaps she'll die.
Could be.
Maybe. There is, of
The
course...
giant worm from Star Wars.
Well, there's the giant worm from Star Wars, from The Empire Strikes Back, but there's also, most obviously,
He's been preparing
there's
this one.
the Death Star in A New Hope, with
Yeah.
the Millennium Falcon taken into the Death Star, which is not the heart of the Empire, but certainly the whale of the Empire, the most feared super weapon of these villains. And then we have the sort of the mentor cycle with the death of Obi-Wan Kenobi at the hands of Vader, and that kind of fits in. Dagobah could be sort of the...
A belly of the... With the cave that Luke... How about the cave that Luke enters?
Yeah, the
in
cave,
which he fights Darth
the cave
Vader.
on Dagobah could definitely be the sort of the belly of the whale. I mean, and more literally, you have in the Disney animated Pinocchio, after that really wild Pleasure Island or whatever it was, that whole scene where Pinocchio is, I think, turned into a donkey. Is that?
Yep.
Yeah, that's. But he literally gets swallowed by Monstro, the giant whale, and finds Geppetto in there. But that's sort of a literal example of the belly of the whale, sort of the darkest hour.
Can't believe you remember Monstro's name. Nobody knows Monstro's name.
Little details stick with me. I don't know where they come from.
I didn't know it had a name. I thought it was just
I remember Pinocchio screaming Monstro repeatedly, and that's.
Yeah. I didn't know it had a name.
I was thinking, for me, the idea of the wormhole replacing the belly of the whale, and you guys have all heard me and to get my spiel about this, and this has been something I've been thinking about since I've read this chapter. But in many ways, the idea of the wormhole has replaced the belly of the whale. If you look at the belly of the whale as the place in which the hero must pass to enter into the wonderful world, like in the Zulu story of the woman with the elephant. Yes.
Shelob's lair.
Yes. Yes. We were also talking about the mines of Moria earlier today, as another metaphor, or another example of the belly of the whale.
And exactly how closely the mines of Moria, in the film at least, parallel the Death Star scenes in A New Hope.
But basically, there's in a lot of pop culture and science fiction, the character will enter through a wormhole and enter into a larger world, such as in the Farscape series. Crichton is accidentally slingshot into a wormhole and then discovers the Farscape galaxy. Or the project is the Farscape project, he discovers the other galaxy. In Planet of the Apes, they get lost in that electric storm wormhole, kind of miasma of space, and end up on Earth in the future. And of course, there's Lost in Space, which I think is the most famous example of that, where the family gets slingshotted through a wormhole.
You have the belly of the beast as sort of the darkest hour of the hero, the thing that kicks off his transformation.
Yeah.
And you think of it sort of like as a literal belly of the beast, but it can be events or a series of events like that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think of a few examples now.
Well, there's in film writing, there's a very specific formula that you have to follow, and it's actually down to the page. By page 15, you have to have introduced every single character that's going to be important in the story. By page 30, there has to be this, and the idea is, a 90-minute script equals 90 minutes of film. And around 45 minutes or, an hour into the film, you have to have the dark moment, where the hero has this thing where he's doubting himself, where everything seems lost and all hope seems lost. And this happens in every single movie.
But then out of that moment of doubt, you also get the sort of, as they talk about in Campbell, that rebirth.
Yeah.
That entry into a new world. The example that's sort of foremost on my mind, because it's what I've been spending a lot of time with, is the death of Duke Leto Atreides in Dune, and the attack on the city of Arrakeen by the Harkonnen forces, where his son Paul, who will later become the Messiah known as Muad'Dib, is thought to be killed. but flees to the desert into the custody of the Fremen and becomes this messianic figure that ends up leading the whole people.
And for the Christian and Messiah thing, this has been the source of some debate with me and my father. We've been having a serious theological debate about whether or not in the Christian mythos, when Christ conquers the grave, does he descend down into hell and take the keys to hell back up with the keys to heaven back up with him? And that is actually a commonly held idea in sort of Christian mythology.
I thought he went to North America.
Christ?
Yeah. Didn't he go to North America, write some shit on some gold tablets, and then
Only if
they were at the bottom of a hat or some such?
Well,
Only if you're Mormon.
See, here's how the thing works. He did go to North America, but in doing that, he went to hell, and apologies for anyone there, because he spent a few days in Las Vegas, and he had some fun there, and, you know. Anyway.
He went to Detroit.
Sorry, it's a great city.
Some might say Western Massachusetts this time of year.
Yes.
Anyways, going on to Campbell's explanation of the motif, which is on page 77 in my version. It's at the very top. This popular motif gives emphasis to the lessons that the passage of the threshold is a form of self-annihilation. Its resemblance to the adventures of the Simple Glades is obvious, and for those of you who remember, the Simple Glades are the clashing rocks in, I believe, Jason and the Argonauts. But here, instead of passing outward beyond the confines of the visible world, the hero goes on inward, to be born again. The disappearance corresponds to the passing of a worshipper into the temple, where he is to be quickened by the recollection of who and what he is, namely dust and ashes, unless immortal. The temple's interior, the belly of the whale, and the heavenly land beyond, above, and below the confines of the world are one and the same. That is why the approaches of the entrance to temples are flanked by defenders, flanked and defended by colossal gargoyles, dragons, lions, devil slayers with swords, resentful dwarves, and winged bulls. These are the threshold guardians from the last chapter, to ward away all incapable of encountering the higher silence within. Now, thinking about this, and sort of what entering into a church and a temple represents, in many ways, I just came back from a trip to Italy, where in many temples and churches are probably some of the most ornate you'd ever seen in the world. So it's very interesting. You know, you think entering into a temple is something so solemn and decked out in splendor. Do you think that splendor represents the sort of boon within the temple? Or is it sort of a covering up of this transformative experience so it seems less scary, or because that is something to be feared, they put a veneer on it?
What was the question?
Okay. Is it because temples can in some ways be the belly of the beast, do you think that the ornately decorated churches that you find throughout the world, especially in the Catholic churches, especially in places like Italy, are they decorated because they represent the boon of salvation within, or are the decorations a veneer to sort of cover up this frightening transformative process that is basically the death of the self?
That's an interesting question.
Bueller?
Ferris Bueller. Ferris Bueller.
Nestor says it's to cover up.
She thinks it's to cover up this sort of act of self-annihilation that is submitting yourself to the will of God?
Well, yeah.
Or the will of your destiny, as a hero would?
I mean, if you're looking at the gilded decorations, you're not thinking about what a transformation you're going through. Whether that's a good thing or not remains to be seen.
In many ways, it might make the transformation easier. In fact, a lot of those decorations sort of symbolize, you'll see a lot of churches have the Stations of the Cross, which represent Christ's journey, which is the journey that, Christians are supposed to sort of take inwardly.
How does not be considered frightening, though? The images of Jesus on the cross.
That's true.
Some Catholic churches, they seem to be quite frightening.
That's true.
The first time I was in a Catholic church, I was quite frightened by they had an entire mural of the
passion.
Yeah, torture. Yeah, the passion and torture.
But it's also this idea of the gatekeepers, of the guardians of what lies within.
They're being pretty honest about.
And it's not, you don't just get it with churches too. I mean, think of all the things like the Boston Public Library has those lion statues out front. And they're sort of the guardians of the knowledge and the power that lies within that. So it's the same kind of idea, I think.
So moving on. They illustrate the fact that devotees at the moment of entry into the temple undergoes a metamorphosis. His secular character remains without. He sheds it as a snake it slew. Once inside, he may be said to have died to a time and returned to the world womb, the world navel, the earthly paradise. The mere fact that anyone can physically walk past the temple guardians does not invalidate their significance, for if the intruder is incapable of encompassing the sanctuary, he has effectively remained without. Anyone unable to understand a god sees it as a devil, and is defended from the approach. Allegorically, then, the passage into a temple and the hero dive through the jaws of the whale are identical adventures, both denoting, in picture language, the life-centering, life-renewing act. No creature, writes Ananda I practiced pronouncing her name several times, Ananda Kumaraswamy, can attain a higher grade of nature without ceasing to exist. So what do you think that means?
It actually, the first thing that I thought of when you read that was, I don't know if anyone reads the comic strip Foxtrot. That might have just been a relic of my childhood. But there was this series of comics where the sort of the little brother character, Jason Fox, was playing a video game. And there was this undefeatable foe. There was this one monster that he could never kill. The thing was just completely invincible. And it turns out the solution wasn't to fight it. The solution was just to walk right past. So we have this idea of these obstacles that seem insurmountable. The things that keep us out of these places if we're not worthy. We see them as devils when truly they are gods. We have this impulse to fight them when all we need to do is walk by and embrace their nature and our own nature and the transformation that's going to occur as we go by.
That reminds me of a Taoist parable about this monk who is enlightened, who is sort of a master and a teacher, and he walks into this town, and there's absolute chaos everywhere because this donkey has moved his cart in front of the road and refuses to budge. There are people behind the donkey, and they're poking it and prodding it and kicking it and trying to drag it off, and the donkey's just like, yeah, I'm going to stay here. It's not happening. And they ask him, oh, master, what will we do? And he just looks at them and says, take the other road. Walk around it.
I'm surprised no one ever pointed out the scene from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Oh, yeah.
Where he has to walk across the invisible bridge.
Yeah.
And that way it shows us more kind of a test
Only
of
with a leap from the lion's head shall he prove his strength.
What about this? This sort of, I think, also talks about the Hindu idea of denying oneself, of sort of achieving enlightenment. I think probably it more means here denying one's ego, which is something that is talked about a lot. Indeed, the physical body of the hero may actually be slain, dismembered, and scattered over the sea, as in the Egyptian myth of the savior Osiris. He was thrown into a sarcophagus and committed to the Nile by his brother Set. And when he returned from the dead, his brother slew him again, tore the body into 14 pieces, and scattered these over the land. The twin heroes of the Navajo had to pass not only through clashing rocks, if you guys remember the story that we've been reading. Oh, yes?
In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, when Harry is on the Hogwarts Express, he thinks he didn't know where he was going, but it had to be better than what he was leaving behind.
That's an interesting idea.
The Hogwarts Express is the guardian.
Also, oh yeah, that worked.
Yeah.
Running through the wall.
running through the wall.
That's true.
That's another
Platform
thing.
9 3/4 is the gatekeeper.
But I was thinking
sort of
going
thing.
further all the way to the 7th book, where in order to save everyone, Harry has to literally deny himself and offer himself up for sacrifice and have Voldemort kill him. Sorry, spoiler alert. Should have said that.
Really, if you haven't read them by now, what are you doing?
I haven't read them.
Or if
Really?
you haven't seen the films, I mean,
I haven't either.
Really?
my apologies.
Yes, I stopped after the first film when they didn't have that mischievous spirit in it at all.
Oh yeah, P.
And if you cut out an entire character who's actually pretty important later on in the books, then it doesn't deserve to be.
I wouldn't even bother watching the movies. Read right up to the 5th book and stop there. Don't read anything after the 5th book.
I read the 4th one. I don't think I've read the 5th one yet.
No, the 4th one's just about the limit of it, actually, I think. Oh, it's the best
Anyways.
for me.
Sorry about not saying spoiler alert.
I have a question.
Yes.
So we were talking earlier about whether the guiltness of the inside of the temple is a veneer or if it's the boon itself.
Or symbolic of the book.
Or symbolic of the boon. But we talked about how the belly of the beast is like getting into the belly itself is supposed to be bliss.
Yes.
And so wouldn't it not be that bliss? Would not that be the extravagance of being in the presence of God here on earth? And if you see it as a veneer, you're not worthy to be in there. You're seeing it as a devil.
Or if you need the veneer. If you're the type of person who needs the veneer to feel comfortable in there, then you're not quite worthy to be there. And my thing was the veneer put up by people who weren't ready to face?
Well, I was thinking that it would be a human attempt to make a heaven on earth.
Yeah, no, that makes sense too.
So, yeah, that would be what they would assume heaven would be. And like the more simplistic neo-Catholics would...
Neo-Catholics, that's what she calls Protestants.
I know a lot of Irish people who'd be very angry about that.
Then they're not Irish. The Irish are Catholics. The neo-Catholics are the British. But anyway, so like the neo-Catholics have very simplistic temples that would show that being with God is very easy.
Yes.
And so it would be the lack of the guiltness and all of that he's just the simple everyday things.
Okay.
Which would be more of an early Greek thing and very pagan.
Very pagan, yeah. I would say so.
Yeah.
Well, Protestants are pagan.
In their attempt to strip away every bit of ritual, they've done something pagan. What do you know?
Wow, we're just on a roll to piss everybody off tonight.
Oh, if I don't offend at least one person with this show,
But
I'd be very happy, actually.
Okay, so let's see. We've irritated Protestants, Catholics. What else are there?
Oh, I'm keeping a list.
It's really easy to irritate the Catholics and the Protestants. We're pagans.
Well, we've got Brendan, so
Our mere existence
somehow
is
you
irritating.
stick with us.
We've got the Catholics, the Protestants, the Free Presbyterians, the locked up Presbyterians, the bacon.
Okay,
All right,
Izzard going away now.
fair enough.
So I need to keep going. It's a very short chapter. I've got a page and a half left. We're going to get through it. Okay. So the twin heroes of the Navajo had to pass not only through the clashing rocks, but also the reeds that cut the traveler to pieces. The boiling sands that overwhelm him. The hero, whose attachment to ego is already annihilated, passes back and forth across the horizons of the world, in and out of the dragon, as readily as the king through all the rooms of his house. And therein lies the power to save, for his passing and returning demonstrates that throughout all of the contraries and phenomenality, the uncreate imperishable remains, and there is nothing to fear. So what do you guys think the phrase uncreate imperishable means?
I honestly have no idea.
That's what I thought the first time I read that.
Uncreate imperishable.
The thing that I think it means, and this is what I did not look this one up, I
To
did not
kill
have
something
much
that
time.
can't be killed.
Basically, the uncreate imperishable, I think, is the sort of part of the person or part of the soul that always existed and can never cease to exist.
But how do you uncreate it then?
Well, it's not created. Uncreate is it was never created.
Okay. So by uncreate, you don't mean destroy.
No, uncreate is,
Wouldn't that be pre-create? Like before creating?
I'm not Campbell. I didn't write this. But,
What's the context of it again?
And therein lies his power to save, for his passing and returning demonstrates that through all the contraries of phenomenality, the uncreate imperishable remains, and there is nothing to fear.
So it's the part of you that can't be destroyed.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
The bits of you that, though the physical body may die, these pieces will live on in some way or another. Soul, spirit, katra, whatever you want to call it.
In Corellian and pagan terms, the higher self. So this is where we're going to start to get gruesome, because we're going to start talking about some literal carrying out of this part of the hero's journey in other cultures. So if you have small children, why are they watching this class? Why are you letting your small children watch this class?
Not to worry, they've already fallen asleep.
No, it's just after 7 o'clock.
Well, they
You
probably
can
wouldn't
watch
get
this
it
any
right.
time, too.
Yeah, it's just on YouTube.
Oh.
Yeah. And so it is that
They
through
don't
the...
want to look at cats.
Yes, go look at... This is the time to go on Daily Squee. If you have small children watching.
Or just look at videos of baby tigers. Those will cheer anyone up.
Or they could go to witch school and learn something more age-appropriate.
Yes, indeed. Young Witches of Salem website. And so it is that throughout the world, men whose functions it has been to make visible on earth the life fructifying mystery of the slaying of the dragon have enacted upon their own bodies the great symbolic act, scattering their flesh like the body of Osiris for the renovation of the world. In Phrygia, for example, in honor of the crucified and resurrected Savior Attis, a pine tree was cut on the 22nd of March and brought into the sanctuary of the mother goddess Sybil. And I'm just going to describe this to you, and I will paraphrase it because I don't want to mess with our YouTube rating. Basically, on this day, in honor of this crucified hero, the priests of Cybele, Cybele, C-Y-B-L, C-Y,
Sybil?
yeah, Sybil, C-Y-B-E-L-E.
Sybil?
Sybil is
Sybil.
S-Y-B-L. Okay, we'll say Sybil. They would all castrate themselves in honor of this at the high point of the ritual.
Every year?
Well, I'm sure
Well,
they
not
would
the
use
same people
not the
every
same
year.
people every year.
That'd be impressive.
That would be the chameleon castration, wouldn't it? They just grow it back and then off again.
Any talent.
Chameleons can do that?
They can do that with their tails, can't they?
Chameleons?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
I thought it was only like starfish and
No,
stuff like that.
chameleons can release their
Worms?
tails.
Or
and spread back.
salamanders. Salamanders can do it. I know that for sure.
I've seen iguanas do it. They release when they get freaked out, they can release their tails, and the tail will go flopping off like this, and the iguana will go off like that, and the predator will go, oh, floppy tail, that's easy to catch, and eat it for dinner.
But we don't know if they can do that with the bits or not.
No.
They probably.
We never tried that experiment in elementary school science
I
class.
don't imagine we would.
Not that we plucked the tails off, it just kind of happened by accident one day.
Well, it doesn't work for that guy who can grow back his head in Men in Black.
Oh no, it doesn't.
No. He can grow his head back though.
Not his other one, though.
Huh?
Not his other one.
Oh.
Alright, children, moving on.
What do you had?
No children.
Two heads.
Alright, Brendan, moving on. Attis's sacrifice. Attis's is the sacrifice King Midas refused when he withheld the bull from Poseidon. As Fraser has shown, ritual regicide was a general tradition in the ancient world. In southern India, he writes, the king's reign in life terminated with the revolution of the planet Jupiter around the sun. In Greece, on the other hand, the king's fate seems to have hung in the balance at the end of every 8 years. Without being unduly rash, we may surmise that the tribute of the 7 youths and 7 maidens, whom the Athenians were bound to send to Minos every 8 years, had some connection with the renewal of the king's power for another octennial cycle. The bull sacrifice required of King Minos implied that he would sacrifice himself according to the pattern of inherited tradition at the close of his 8-year term. But he seemed to have offered instead a substitute of the Athenian youths and maidens. That perhaps is how the divine Minos became the monster Minotaur, a self-annihilating king, the tyrant Holdfast, and the hieratic state, wherein every man enacts his role, the merchant empire, wherein each is out for himself. Such practices of substitution seem to have become general throughout the ancient world towards the close of the great period of the early hieratic states, during the 3rd and 2nd millennia BC. I'm a little more inclined to think that these sacrifices of the kings were generally more symbolic. I know in some cultures it did happen, but I don't think there was a general cult of killing the king. I don't know. What do you think, Fox?
I know in the Mayan or Aztec culture, I can't remember which, I get them confused very easily because they're both in the same general region. But in one of them, when their king's term was over, they would literally rip out his heart, burn it up into a fun little piece of ash, and then they would use his blood and put it into a big ball of ash hearts. And so all of their kings would live on in a big ball of heart ash and blood.
Oh.
And so they just kept that. It's like a rubber band ball, but grosser.
Wow.
But also with that goes the idea, they had a different idea of the self. This is something that Dawn talks about all the time. Reverend Lewis. And it's this idea that they identified themselves as part of the entire culture. And so they identified themselves within a role, not necessarily as their individual personality like we do now.
Yeah.
We see ourselves as a person. They would have seen themselves as a tinker, a smith, whatever they did.
Mm-hmm.
You and I see each other as the sum of our traits.
Yeah.
And that we are different from any other human being. There's something that we bring to the table that nobody else brings. They didn't think that way all the time. We didn't think that way the entire time, and that it was easy to just get a replacement king.
And I think what's interesting about that is it's with this idea of the self, it introduces this idea of self-sacrifice but also self-preservation, which is with King Minos substituting the Athenian youths for the sacrifice of himself as they posit there. It speaks of this aspect of once we have this awareness of the self, the immediate instinct is self-preservation. So why should we sacrifice ourselves when we can get 14 other dopes to do it for us?
Although the interesting thing
But they
is...
were also supposed to use a bull originally, instead of the 18 other dopes.
Of course, the interesting thing is, in a lot of names, there are actually the words that actually identify them. For example, you see some names like baker, smith, meaning
That's true.
like blacksmith, miller.
That's true. We see sort of vestiges of that culture today. And I mean, even when I went, again, back to my trip to Italy, I met a family. It was an entire family, 3 generations, were selling pottery on the steps of this cathedral in Perugia. And they were telling me the entire family were craftsmen. Every single generation worked with the clay and painted the clay and did this. And that sort of tradition is just very hard to find nowadays.
You see in a lot of fairy tales that one person who wants to be different from their entire line of things. Like, in Once Upon a Time, Geppetto didn't want to be like his family.
But there's always for example, the brave little tailor. He didn't want to be a tailor anymore.
Yeah, and the elf from Rudolph who wanted to be a
dentist. Yes.
That's one of the central traits of the hero, isn't it?
That he's not content.
The hero is discontent with what he perceives as the normal life of his peers or his family, and that he wants to change that.
But I don't want to be a moisture farmer anymore, Uncle Owen.
Luke, you've wasted enough time with your friends. Now get those droids cleaned up. So another cyclical example of the death of the king and the rebirth is the Oak and Holly King. For those of you who tuned in on Saturday, we actually did a mystery play about the death of the Oak and Holly King here for the ritual.
With a topless Oak King.
With a topless Oak King! Watch it! But the idea of the old having to die away for the new to step up, and the old has to sacrifice himself. or herself. If you'll notice, one of the resources that I posted on the Witch School and Young Witches group was a mystery play done by the Fellowship of Isis of the story of Ishtar, and I've gone back to this story several times throughout. The idea is that Ishtar had to descend into the underworld and basically strip herself of symbols of the ego as she went down. She had to strip herself of her diadem, her bracelets, her clothing, everything, until she stood naked before the goddess of death to get her husband back. And this is the same idea of the hero having to strip away and kill the ego and kill the old in order to move forward.
So, anytime you go through an airport, it's basically like descending into the belly of the beast.
Yes!
You have to strip away everything.
To get into the inside of the airplane.
Yes.
Which is a frightening experience to travel to the land which you want to get to.
But there's also this you could also see entering the gates of heaven as entering the belly of the beast. We sort of talked about that before, but there's a medieval cycle play called Everyman, which is actually where the term comes from. And the protagonist of the play, called Everyman, is dying. And one by one he's visited by personifications of friends, of riches, of titles, of lands, and none of those things can come with him to the afterlife. They all make some sort of excuse as to why he can't come until the last thing he has, not even his name or his own self he has with him, but the only thing that will accompany him to the afterlife is good deeds. So there's sort of that sense of all that you have left is what you've done. And that allows you to enter sort of the new world, the rebirth.
Alright, so do we have any questions in the forum? Chat room thing. Actually, quest thing.
Someone had to have left the airport security one.
I do. After the Italy trip, I can safely
Actually,
say.
they were more excited about the lizard tail thing.
They
Lots
would
of comments on the lizards. One comment on the epic rubber band ball.
Alright.
Thank you.
Any comments from the back of the class? People who aren't Nestor that would like to speak up?
Nope.
No.
Just Nestor talking about geckos.
Okay. Well, feel free to leave any comments you might have in the comments section on the YouTube post of the video or any other places that you might find this posted. Question for
Or
the
post
week.
a response video.
Or post a response video. We love those. And we hope to see you next week. This has been the Joseph K. Oh, and we need the donation sign.
No.
No, we don't have the donation sign. Oh yeah, we're going on break this week. So I will not be here next week.
You can see you guys live on an iPad app.
Look at that.
Very
Isn't that
cool.
impressive?
Live stream iPad app.
Oh, we have an iPad app. So yes, download the iPad app. Is this what the iPad?
That's not us.
That's not
Live
us?
stream iPad app.
Oh, download the live stream iPad app. I guess, and you can watch us that way on the go. You can take me with you.
It even gives you a little update when the live stream's happening.
Really?
If you favorite us.
That's cool. I like this.
It's very handy. Go download it. It's on the App Store. How much is it?
It is free.
It's a
It's
free
free.
app on the App Store for your iPad. Does it work with the iPod and the iPhone as well?
I'm sure it might.
So it
Good.
probably
So
works
you
with the
won't have an
iPad.
excuse for missing my show.
Unless I can't find a Wi-Fi connection.
So, this has been the Joseph Campbell Study Group. Is the piece of paper next to you under my purse?
No.
No? We're not doing it? Alright. Well, I hope you enjoyed, and we're taking a break. We will not be here next Monday. We're taking a Yule break, right?
Starting this
after that-
Wednesday up until next Tuesday.
Yep. So, and after that, we're going to be Thursday nights.
Yes.
And then you can join us for this, and you can join us for the After Hours show as well, which will be fun. So,
Even more dicks.
yeah, if you think the language is bad now, just you wait and see till we get out of the sacred space. So yeah, see you all in a couple of weeks, and good night.